Kia ora. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Lex, an advisor here at Charity Services, and I'm joined by Dawn, the Senior Capability Accountant. Today, we're going to complete a combined Tier 4 annual return form by logging in to our online dashboard. A little bit of housekeeping before we start. Can you hear us? Make sure your speakers are unmuted and check your internet if you're having trouble. In the unlikely event we experience technical difficulties, please wait while we work through them, and we'll be back with you as soon as possible. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll send you an email with the recording link and any resources we discuss. We have time at the end to answer questions, so please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them. Please note, we won't be able to answer questions specific to your charity. For questions specific to your own charity, please email us at info@charities.govt.nz. As a registered charity, you're required to report to Charity Services every year. This is called an annual return and involves two key components: a complete performance report and a complete annual return form. Those charities reporting at Tier 4 can choose to complete these two as separate documents, the annual return form and the performance report, or together as a combined Tier 4 annual return form. With the combined Tier 4 annual return, everything you need to provide is included in one single form that you complete online. The first section of the form is the standard annual return, where you'll either update your charity's details or confirm that your registered details are still correct. Once you've confirmed or updated your details, you'll answer some questions about your charity. The last section of the form are the performance report, where you'll provide full details about your financial and non-financial activities throughout the year and digitally sign the form. Your completed annual return will be publicly available and is collated with the other charities on the register to provide information about the wider charitable sector in Aotearoa. Your charity must report to Charity Services within 6 months of your financial year ending. For example, if your charity's balance date, which is the name for your end of financial year, is the 31st of March 2025, then you must file your annual return by the 30th of September 2025. Before we continue, we just want to make sure that this is the right webinar for you. This webinar is designed for charities reporting under the Tier 4 not-for-profit standard who want to use the combined Tier 4 form. This form is only available when filing online and combines the annual return and the performance report into one single form. You can only use the combined form if your charity does not have public accountability, uses the cash basis of accounting, if filing for the first time has expenses under $140,000, and if filed before, had expenses below $140,000 in at least one of the previous 2 years. The combined Tier 4 annual return form may be useful for charities that are reporting at Tier 4 and who only have a few very simple transactions throughout the financial year. It is not suitable for charities that may have complex transactions or charities that want to provide additional information in the notes section. The combined form is also not suitable for charities that have already prepared their performance report as a separate document. Because the combined form includes the annual return and performance report together, you won't need to upload a separate performance report. If your charity uses accounting software such as MYOB or Xero, you're likely using accrual accounting and so are not eligible to use the Tier 4 not-for-profit standard. While all charities are generally considered to be publicly accountable, public accountability has a specific meaning in the accounting standards. Generally, public accountability includes entities whose main activity is holding cash or other assets on behalf of others, like a superannuation scheme, or who issue debt or equity. If your charity does fall into this definition, you must report at Tier 1. The full definition of public accountability for financial reporting purposes can be found on the External Reporting Board, XRB, website. For today's webinar, we'll be using a charity we made up named the Awhina After School Care Trust. The purpose of this charity is to provide free after-school care to students of local primary schools. The trust was initially set up in 2023 with a donation of $5,000 and gifted a very old computer. They've since expanded and now use grants from the government so that they can pay wages. They also sell calendars containing artwork made by the children who attend the after-school care program as a way to raise extra funds. They're applying the Tier 4 standard for the financial year that ended on the 31st of March 2025. The first step to filing online is logging into your dashboard. Go to charities.govt.nz and click on Login either at the top of the page or the right-hand side. Log in by entering your registration number, for example, CC12345, and the password your charity is set. This will take you to your dashboard where you can view all your existing information, update your charity's information, and create and submit your annual returns. If Create Annual Return is grayed out, you probably have a previous task in progress that needs to be completed or deleted first. Have a look around your dashboard for anything marked as in progress. You should have a green Continue button next to it and a red Delete button. Once you delete or complete the previous task, you'll be able to create your annual return. You should already know what tier that you're going to report at before you start your annual return though. If you're not sure, check the page What Tier Will I Use on our website. This is Awhina's second year filing, so we're going to open last year's performance report from their dashboard. You can see the prior year performance report shows Awhina Trust had $14,250 of operating expenses. Awhina After School Care Trust used the optional automated cash book tool throughout this year to help them track each transaction they made. So we're going to open that now and have a look. The Tier 4 Automated Cash Book is a tool for keeping track of your transactions throughout the financial year. It's suitable for charities reporting at Tier 4, and some charities may find it useful for helping you categorize your transactions. The automated cash book can be useful, but remember it is optional, and it's an internal tool for your own records. It often contains sensitive, private, and personal information, and publishing that document could be a breach of someone's privacy. It is not a replacement for completing a performance report, and it should not be published or uploaded to your annual return. Awhina After School Care Trust used the cash book throughout the year so that when it came time for them to file their annual return, they already have all their transactions sorted into the correct minimum required categories. Also have all of the totals already calculated and have checked that these totals match their bank balances. We can see here in the cash book that the charity had $78,430 of operating expenses this year. We're going to use both the previous year's performance report and the automated cash book to help us fill in the form later on. So we're going to keep them both open. If you haven't used the automated cash book, you'll need to have a list of all transactions for the year instead. Because they have under $140,000 in expenses in each of the previous 2 years, we know that this charity can report using Tier 4. Because they also have already all the transactions sorted into the minimum required categories and a separate performance report has not been prepared, we know that we can file the combined Tier 4 annual return form. Now that we know what tier we're going to report at, we're going to create the annual return. Please note, you can only create an annual return if your dashboard shows that an annual return is required, as seen on the screen now. Next, you need to confirm the reporting period the annual return is for. If you only have one annual return to file, this will automatically show the correct year. However, if you have multiple annual returns outstanding, you must make sure you select the correct year for what you're filing. Before you start the annual return, we recommend going through the checklist on this page and reviewing your financial information. This will help make sure you have all the information you need to complete and submit the form. You can see here at the top of the page the various sections of the form. The section you're currently in is colored green. Below these boxes are the pages within each section. The page you're currently on will also be marked green. You can use this to track your progress throughout the form and see how much further there is to go. The first few pages of the annual return form show your charity's currently registered information. Make sure you review that the information is correct and up to date. Legal name is the full legal name of the charity. It must be the same everywhere you're registered. For example, if you're incorporated at the New Zealand Companies Office. Other name is if your charity uses any other name to operate, listed here. Date of registration and registration number cannot be changed at the moment as they're set when the charity became registered. Balance date is the end of your financial year, and it cannot be changed while completing an annual return. If you need to change your balance date, delete this annual return and complete an update details form instead. IRD and NZBN, if you have these numbers and they're not already listed, you can add these here now. Postal address. If this is changed, click the Change My Postal Address button and enter in your new address. If your physical location or street address is not the same as your postal address, select that option and enter your street address. Areas of operation. If the areas where your charity operates have changed since you registered, select the new areas here. The next section is charity identity. Your charity may consider itself kaupapa Māori if its primary purposes are to support Māori communities. A charity would be unlikely to consider itself kaupapa Māori if its focus was mainly on outcomes for the wider population. Your charity may consider itself Pacifica if its activities serve Pacifica people. Alternately, it could be made up of people who identify as Pacifica. The last question is about whether or not you're established to support ethnic communities. Tick the box yes if your charity was set up with a primary purpose of supporting ethnic communities. The New Zealand government defines ethnic communities as communities composed of Asian, African, continental European, Latin American, and Middle Eastern cultures. Charity details is information published on the public register. So if you have a public email address, phone number, or social media, you can list them here. Don't include any private information in these fields. Primary contact details is information that's not publicly available and is used by charity services when we need to contact you. The primary contact is also the person who can reset the login password. Please make sure this is always kept up to date and that the email address you provide is accessible and regularly monitored. You have the option to provide an alternative contact as well. We strongly recommend you provide an alternate contact to help ensure we can contact your charity when needed. Once this information is correct, you can continue to the next page, Officer Details. This page shows your currently listed officers. If any of your officers have changed, you can update this here. To remove an officer, click Remove and enter the reason and date they stopped being an officer. To change the position an officer holds, click on their current position and type in the new one. To add an officer, click the blue Add a New Officer button. Confirm if the officer is an individual or a body corporate, and fill in their details. Make sure you know their date of birth and address, as you need those to finish the process, even though they're not shown on the public register. Once the officers are up to date, you can continue to the next page, Purpose and Structure. The Purpose and Structure page shows your currently registered charitable purpose, legal structure, and activities. These can be edited on this page if they've changed. Charitable purpose is a description of your charitable purpose or mission that you enter that will be published on the public register. For most charities, this information can also be found in your rules document. Your charity's legal structure could be a trust, society, or company, and it can usually be found in your rules. If you're not sure if your charity is incorporated or unincorporated, check the New Zealand Companies Office. Main activity, main sector, and main beneficiary are all selected from drop-down menus. Make sure the information is still correct. If it's wrong or if it's changed, you can select a new option by clicking the arrow on the right side of the box. The next question is about generating funds for other charities or organizations and whether it's the main way you achieve your charitable purpose. Consider the main activities your charity undertakes. Do you raise funds for other organizations or provide funding to them? For example, a charity that raises funds nationally and passes this on to local charities providing services to their communities. This is different from charities whose main purpose is to provide goods or services. An example of that would be a charity that provides counseling services directly to people. Have your governance procedures been reviewed within the last 3 years? Your governance procedures are required to be reviewed at least once every 3 years. Each charity is responsible for doing this in a way that suits them best, so the process will be different for everyone. If you've completed a review within the last 3 years, click Yes and tell us the date the review was completed. Have existing rules changed? You need to make sure that the rules we have on the register are up to date. If the rules we have on the register have changed, click Yes and upload a new version. You'll also need to provide the date the change happened and give a short explanation of what has changed. When you've answered each question on this page, you can continue to the next page, Your People. This page is where you tell us how many people your charity pays to do work and how many volunteers and volunteer hours were worked for your charity this year. Paid full-time and part-time employees include everyone who is paid to work for your charity in an average week, including yourself. When they're operating, Awhina has 2 part-time employees. Total employee hours. Add up the total hours that all paid employees work, including yourself, in an average week. When they're operating, Awhina's employees work an average 40 hours a week combined. One thing that can help you determine whether someone is an employee is whether you pay PAYE or payroll tax on their behalf. Volunteer hours, total volunteers. Volunteers are people who work for your charity without pay. Tell us how many people in total volunteered for your charity in this reporting period. Include yourself if you're not paid for your work. Awhina had a total of 25 volunteers this year, including its 3 board members. For total volunteer hours, including yourself, that you recorded in the last section, into the total number of hours that were worked across the reporting period. We count volunteer numbers over the entire financial year. Do not provide a weekly or monthly average. Awhina's volunteers worked a total of 1,672 volunteer hours for the year. Thank you, Dawn. When completing this page, make sure you consider your officers and board members. If they're fulfilling their duties without being paid, then they are volunteers. In the same way, if they're being paid to complete their duties, then they need to be included in the paid employees section. It is very unlikely that any organization will have 0 volunteers and 0 employees. If your charity does anything, financial or non-financial, then the people or person involved should be recorded here. Once this page is complete and you have entered all of your employee and volunteer information for the whole year, you can move on to the next page where you'll select your reporting tier. As discussed earlier, you should already know what tier you're going to be reporting at before you start your annual return. If you're not sure, click the link, "What tier will I use?" that you can see on the screen. We know Awhina had $14,250 of operating expenses last year, and the cash book for this year shows that they had $78,430 of operating expenses. Because they have under $140,000 in expenses in each of the previous 2 years, we know we're able to use the combined Tier 4 annual return and are selecting Tier 4 here. After selecting Tier 4, you'll see more questions that appear on this page that need to be answered. Overseas operation. Our example charity only operates locally in one location, so we're selecting no for this question. Donee status. If your charity has received any donations of money or koha this financial year, select yes. This does not include grants received for specific purposes. Our example charity has received donations, so we selected yes to this question. If you answer yes, a second question will appear asking if your charity spent at least 75% of its funds towards charitable purposes within New Zealand. To answer this, you need to compare the proportion your charity spent in donations spent on charitable purposes overseas with the total amount your charity spent. If you answer no to the second question, you'll then need to consider the total amount spent overseas over the past 3 years, and if at least 50% of your funds have been spent on charitable purposes within New Zealand during that time. Click on the question mark for more assistance. For control relationships, your charity is considered controlled by another if all 3 of these are true. Power over your organization, the other organization has existing rights that give them the ability to direct your charity's activities. Access to benefits. The other charity has access to benefits, such as profits or services, from being involved with your charity. And link between power and benefits. The other charity can use its power to influence the nature or amount of benefits they receive from your charity. An example of a control relationship is where a charity establishes an incorporated society to run a second-hand shop on their behalf, with profits returning to the charity. Alwhena is not controlled by another registered charity, so we've selected no for this question. Once you've answered all the questions on this page, you can continue to the next page, Financial Performance.
First step on this page is to confirm whether or not you want to complete the combined annual return form. As Awhina After School Care Trust has not already completed a separate performance report and wants to complete the combined annual return form, we are selecting yes for this question. Remember, if you have already completed a performance report, you should select no for this question so you can upload the performance report to this form and submit them both together. If you need help filling out your non-combined annual return form, you can watch our previous webinar, How to Complete a Tier 4 Annual Return online. A link to this webinar will be included in the resources. After you confirm that you are filing a combined annual return, the next section you need to complete for this page is the Statement of Service Performance. This is where you describe your main activities and state the quantities. You don't need to list everything your charity did, just the most important activities. Think about the story you want to tell readers, including funders, so that next year you can see how you are tracking. Awhina had a variety of activities during the year. Days after school care was provided for 200. Calendars sold was 100. Grants provided to families, 10. If you look at the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the last year column. If this is your first year as a registered charity, you will need to enter zeros into each field in this column. If this is not your first year reporting, you must enter your figures for the previous year into each section. You can find your previous year's figures in your previous year's annual return or performance report. Awhina was operating in the previous year, so we are going to fill in the last year figures using the performance report we opened earlier. Oh, you've shown that on the screen already?
Not yet, almost. Okay.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 80. And then the other things didn't happen last year. Great. Next is your opening balance. This is the amount of money you started the year with. To find this and fill in the rest of the combined annual return form, we are going to use last year's performance report and the figures from the cash book we already filled in.
So we're going to fill in last year's figures now. What was the opening balance last year?
Opening balance is $850.
For this year or last year?
For this year.
So we'll do last year's figures first.
So last year would have been 0 because it was their first year, but we can check on the performance report from last year.
Exactly.
Right, so it was 0. And donations for last year were $5,000. Remember, when filling in the annual return form, make sure you use whole figures rounded to the nearest dollar. There's already a decimal and cents in there. And if you continue typing, it will take all of the zeros you put in and will distort the figures. So just make sure you put in just the whole amounts. Below the opening balance, as you see Lex typing in the figures, you will see that all the transactions are grouped together as either cash coming in or going out of the charity. The purpose of grouping information into categories is to provide a standardized overview, making it easier for readers to see the types of funding received by a charity and where the money was spent. To make this section as easy as possible for your charity, categorize your transactions throughout the year. For example, at the end of each month, and keep track of how you categorize your receipts and payments so that you are consistent from year to year. So let's, before you go on to that, let's go back up to cash received from operating activities and do this year.
Go for it.
So you have the cash book,
Yes.
right? So the automated cash book tool is on our website, and it can help you track and categorize your transactions throughout the year. You'll see at the bottom, there's a tab for each month. So you can pull the transactions from your bank account directly into this. Well, not directly into it. You save them from your bank statement from your bank account, and then you can copy and paste into this page for each month. If you use it throughout the year, it provides you a total each month, as well as a final total for the end of the financial year. So if you go to the summary page, you'll see that it totals each month. A link to this will be included in the resources. If you are unsure what goes into each category, just use your best judgment and make sure to be consistent across your years. So we're going to start with cash received for operating activities, which is all the money received by the charity for day-to-day transactions. We're going to go through each of these fields now. Athena held a fundraising event and received $18,360. So it has entered that amount on the first line. $15,000 of general grants were received. $50,000 of service delivery grants were received. They had no membership fees or subscriptions, so that's zero. Athena sold $3,000 worth of calendars. This amount is entered into the sale of goods and services line. And $150 of interest was received. Athena After School Care Trust did not receive any other cash not included in these categories, so we've entered zero into that field. You will see that the field total cash received from operating activities now has a figure in it. This total figure should equal all of the money your charity received for day-to-day transactions within the financial year. Check this against the cash book if you used one. It's the same. Great, good job.
Thank you.
Similarly, all of the cash paid out for operating activities are grouped into the grouped into the minimum categories under the standard. This includes any payments to employees and volunteer-related costs. Within all the money paid for operating activities, Athena After School Care Trust paid $6,060 for the fundraising event they held. They paid $42,388 for costs relating to employees and $2,190 for volunteer-related costs. They spent $500 for the printing costs for the calendars they sold and $25,292 for other costs related to delivering their charitable purpose. This included items like rent and utilities. Athena also gave out $2,000 in grants. There was no other cash paid that is not accounted for by these categories, so we've entered zero in this field. You will see that the field total cash paid for operating activities now has a figure in it. This total should equal all of the money your charity spent for operating activities within this financial year. Check this against your cash book if you used it. And does it?
It does.
It does, great. And we have the prior year in there as well. Cool. If your charity is registered for GST and you have paid GST or received a refund of GST, enter that payment or receipt here. Because Athena has paid GST within every expenditure that they paid, and they are reporting inclusive. Every amount that they have already entered already has the GST in it. So they don't have anything additional here. Remember, if you are unsure what goes into each category, check the help notes by clicking on the question mark next to each field and use your best judgment. This page will have all of your charity's transactions for the whole reporting period once you have filled it in. So if you have any uncategorized transactions, or if your end totals don't match your actual bank accounts and cash figures, you'll need to check everything again and make sure you haven't missed anything. You can see an operating surplus or deficit has now been calculated. This is your total cash received from operating activities minus total cash paid for operating activities, and plus or minus GST. So it matches the cash book. Great. Next on this page is a section for cash received and paid for other activities. This is going to be all other transactions for the reporting period that haven't been included in operating receipts and payments. Examples of this are cash received when borrowing funds or cash paid for the purchase of investments or physical assets. Athena did not sell any investments, so we will enter 0 into the field sale of investments. They did sell their secondhand computer for $50, so we will enter 50 into sale of other assets. They did not receive any cash from loans or borrowing, so we will enter 0 into that field. For the cash paid for other activity fields, Athena did not purchase any investments, so we enter 0 there. They did purchase a new computer and printer, moving up, for $2,575 combined. So we will enter that into purchase of other assets. They did not repay any loans or borrowings, so we will enter 0 into that field. They also did not have income tax to pay or refunded, so 0 is in that field as well. You will see again that the totals and surplus or deficit fields have now automatically calculated based on everything you have entered in, including a closing balance in bank accounts and any cash on hand. This should match your cash book. And we should also do the prior year based on last year's performance report. So I see that we didn't have anything in other activities.
No.
Yeah, so all of those fields are 0 for the prior year. Make sure if those fields, if you did not have expenditure in that category, that you do enter 0. You will not be able to continue to the next page until every field has some number in it, even if that number is 0. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The closing balance should match the actual closing balance you had at the end of the financial year in your bank statements, plus any undeposited cash. So it's cash that you have on hand. If it doesn't match, please review everything you entered into this page and make sure you have not missed any transactions. These figures also should match the cash book if you used it. So we see that it does match. That's great. The next section on this page is called Represented By. This is where you enter the actual balance of your bank accounts and any undeposited cash that you hold at the end of the last day on your financial year. Athena After School Care Trust has a balance date of 31 March 2025, so we are entering in the closing balance of the bank statement for that date. They had a total of $4,300 across 2 bank accounts, so we are entering that into closing balance of bank accounts. They had $2,000 invested in term deposits and $105 in undeposited cash. So altogether, that matches the closing balance in bank accounts and the cash book. Great. If the figures are different, then most likely there's been a mistake somewhere on this page, like a missed transaction or a typo or something being recorded multiple times. You will not be able to move on to the next section until all of the fields on this page are completed and the cash figures match. Just a quick tip for those who are interested, if you find that the numbers aren't matching and the difference is divisible by 9, so if you have a difference of 900 and you divide it by 9 and it's a clean number like 100, that means a number somewhere has been transposed. That means you've, instead of writing like 2450, you wrote 2540. So just keep that in mind. It's a fun fact, fun accounting fact. Anyway, where are we now?
Accounting policies.
Yes. Right, on the next, oh yes, next on this page is the statement of accounting policies. This is pre-written and just confirms that the return has been prepared using XRB's Tier 4 not-for-profit standard. Below the statement of accounting policies, you will need to confirm whether or not this is your organization's first year as a registered charity. If this is your first year, you will then need to confirm the specific date your financial year started and the time period the report covers. The question mark can help you with some information on that if you need it. Athena, of course, did not start this year, so we said no. The last thing on this page is to state whether or not your charity is registered for GST. If you are not sure, check with Inland Revenue to find out. Athena is registered for GST, so we answer yes to this question. We also select whether the figures we entered included GST, which means inclusive, or did not include GST, which is exclusive. If you purchased an item and included the entire price into the statement of cash received and cash paid, this means GST was included. Once all the fields on this page have been completed, including any zeros and your figures for the previous year, you can click the Next button to continue to the next page of the annual return, financial position. All right. This page is where you will provide information on your charity's assets and liabilities, any related party transactions that occurred, and correct any errors. The first question on this page asks if your charity had any significant assets or liabilities in the current or previous financial year. The XRB Tier 4 standard limits significant assets to 4 categories: land and buildings, vehicles, investments, and amounts owed to external parties. Amounts loaned to external parties. If your charity does not hold any significant assets, or if it only holds assets outside of these categories, you can answer no to this question. If your charity does hold assets in any of these categories, whether you purchased them or they were donated to your charity, you must enter an amount for the total value of these assets if that value is easily available. This means the total amount paid to purchase the asset or the total estimated current value. An estimated current value could include the possible cost to replace it or an estimated sales price. The XRB does not expect or require Tier 4 charities to obtain a formal valuation of significant assets. For example, a rateable value can be used for land and buildings, which can be found on a recent rates assessment or an invoice. If you did use an estimated value, the source of the estimate must be noted in the space provided. In our example, Athena Trust was gifted a van. They estimated that value to be $25,000 last year and $20,000 this year. They got these figures by looking up similar vehicles for sale on TradeMe. So put 0 in the rest of these first. They didn't have anything but that van. And then type in here, value of donated van estimated using similar vehicles for sale on TradeMe. Great. The next section, significant liabilities, is where you will provide information about any significant liabilities your charity has or any amounts owed to external parties. Athena Trust did not have any loans or borrowings at the end of the financial year, so we enter 0 into this field. They do not hold money on behalf of others, so we are entering 0 into that field. We should check the prior year performance report to make sure that our last year figures match. So significant assets, 25,000, that's correct. Significant liability, 0, great. Okay. The next section, related party transactions, is about transactions that occurred between the charity and any person or organization that is closely connected to, otherwise known as related parties. For financial reporting purposes, a related party is someone that has significant influence over the charity. You can think of this as decision-making power. Officers, committee members, or others who make decisions for the charity could be considered to have this power. Close members of their families, due to their relationships, and other organizations that have significant influence over your charity. Related party transactions are transactions that happen between the charity and these related parties. The standard requires charities to report related party transactions for transparency, as related party relationships can affect how charities operate. Related party transactions could either be a transaction involving money or one that is in kind, which means provided at no cost, like an officer providing accounting services for no cost. Our example charity has 2 related party transactions that took place during the year, so we answer yes to this question and enter the details of each transaction. The chairperson, so we'll just type chairperson, donated a van. No, that goes in the second box, sorry.
You.
Donated a van in the prior year. So that would be the values here, and that was 25,000. A trustee, and so it's 0 for this current year because they donated it last year. A trustee was paid $500 for printing calendars. So just say trustee. And 500. You'll need to enter that number as a negative because we paid them. Not that one. Sorry.
Okay.
Current year 500, negative, right? Prior year 0. Although I see that we paid 500 last year. We paid 500 in both years. Okay? If there's any money owing for a transaction, it goes into the second section, amount owing to and from a close relationship. There's no money owing, so we will delete that line as it's not relevant. The next section is correction of errors. If your previous year's reports had any errors that were corrected in the financial year, tick yes and provide the details here. You will need to describe the nature of the error and how the error has been corrected in the current financial year. For example, if the closing balance in the previous year's report was incorrect, and this has been corrected in this year's report. We didn't have any errors, so we click no. The next section, additional information, is optional. You can use this note to include any additional information you think is necessary for readers to understand the overall performance of the entity. This could be things like events that happened after the balance date that affect your ability to continue to operate, or grants you have received that have expectations or requirements over their use. Some charities that have assets that do not fit into the XRB prescribed significant asset categories can also use this box to disclose them. For example, if you have musical instruments and you would like readers to know what you have and their value. The final section on this page is for an officer of the charity who has the authority to approve the performance report, to sign and date it. This is done by ticking the box confirming that authority and filling in the fields. First name, last name, position, and date. Note that the date cannot be in the future, but it can be in the past. So make sure that whenever that person of authority approves this form, that the date reflects that actual day. Filling in these fields and ticking that box serves as the authorized officer digitally signing the form. The date entered should be the date they actually approved the form. Once this page is complete, click the next button to continue to the next page, certification.
This page is where you confirm that all the information in this annual return is correct and that you're authorized by the charity to submit the annual return. This can be completed by the same person who authorized the form or a different person. Remember, the system will save your progress, so if you have an officer authorize the form, another person can then certify and complete the filing. Do this by ticking the box and typing in your first and last name into the first and last names fields. This is how the annual return form is signed digitally. You can also state if you want to restrict information from the public register. If you choose this, you must provide a supporting document that shows restricting or withholding information is in the public's best interest, not just the charity's interests. Our example charity does not need to restrict or withhold any information from the public register, so we'll not tick this box. And go straight to the next page, review and submit. On this page, you can see all the information you've entered into the annual return form and review it to check that it's correct. Click the arrows for each section to expand it and review the information. If any information is incorrect or needs to be changed, click the Edit button to go directly to that page of the form and make changes. Some key things to look out for are that everything is in whole dollars, no cents, and that all zeros have been included. You should also make sure your employee or volunteer numbers make sense for your activities. Once your annual return is complete and correct, click on the yellow Submit Annual Return button to submit the form to us at Charity Services. Please remember that once you submit your annual return, you will not be able to make any changes. After you submit your annual return, you'll see a confirmation notice and you'll be advised if anything further is required. Charities with a total gross income of $10,000 or more must pay a filing fee, and if your annual return is only complete when we have received and processed the fee. Full details of the amount will be visible on the screen. You can pay this by direct deposit or bank transfer. Information about how to pay, including the account name and number, can be found on our website and in an email we send after you submit your annual return and performance report. Now that we've completed and submitted the annual return, we're going to answer some questions. Please type your questions into the Q&A box if you haven't done so already. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can.
Yeah, sorry, we don't have a whole lot of time, but we'll get to as many as we can.
Yeah. Just remember, don't ask questions specific to your charity. If you have specific questions, please send us an email or give us a call. Contact information is on the screen. If I'm registered for GST, can I choose to report either with or without GST?
Yeah, for sure. And the GST disclosure allows for that. So you can say, I am registered, and all of the figures are exclusive. And just remember, though, that whenever you purchase something or sell something, there might be GST included. And whether you've received a payment from the IRD or paid the IRD, you put that amount in that GST box so that all of your figures will match your bank statement.
Can the reporting be changed from GST exclusive to GST inclusive from this year onwards to enable easier reporting?
Sure, but just be sure that when you provide comparative figures, that they are also inclusive. So if you are saying for the current year that all the figures are showing GST inclusive, you'll need to change the figures from the prior year and probably put that in the additional note that we have at the end, just to say, look, we've changed how we've reported, and so you'll see the figures are different. We have changed to be GST inclusive.
In terms of financial reporting, if your charity commenced in the 2024-2025 year and you've received donations but haven't commenced delivering activity, how do you report that in the service performance area?
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
That is quite specific. You might want to email us that one, and so we can work with you to come to a better solution.
There is the possibility of, if you know exactly what activity you're going to be doing, you could still list them and then state 0. That way, next year, it'll be consistent with what you deliver next year. That will have numbers in it.
Potentially.
One potential option, but definitely send us an email.
See. Okay. I realize you have said combined form is just online, but even for something you have to submit live online, it is helpful to see the questions, etc., so you can make sure you have all the details on hand that you need to answer. How can you see in advance? So our combined return combines the annual return, which you may have completed before if you're not a new charity, with the performance report of a Tier 4, the simple performance report for the Tier 4 not-for-profit standard. You can find the performance report on our website or on the XRB website, but also remember that you can log in and you can start your annual return and come back anytime. Your progress will be saved. So you can come in, have a look, maybe print out the pages. That very first page will show you all of the things that you need to have in advance before you get started. Yeah, the checklist. Yeah. And that will tell you everything that you need before you get started.
Yeah, it might not list the exact specific questions, but it does list all the information you need to have available. What can I do if last year's financial balance is not the same as the opening balance for this year?
Well, it should be. If it isn't, then you should look to see why and correct it in the prior year, if I assume the error was in the prior year. And then you can disclose that you've corrected that error in the area that we've mentioned, which is correction of errors.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for your questions. Remember, you can rewatch this webinar again at any time, as the recording will be available on our website. We hope that attending today's session was useful to you, and you now know how to complete the combined Tier 4 annual return. If you weren't able to answer your questions, please contact us by email or phone. Thanks for attending.